So here I am. I'm now going to be trimming away some of this decorative mesh. Oh no, the lights went out. What have I done? I hope I didn't cut the string of lights. I'll show you how I fixed that later. But right now I'll show you how I got there. First, we take 4 large clothes hangers and we lay them out like this. Just make sure that the handles are facing inward. When you're laying it out, just make sure that there's a circle in the middle. Once you have the rough layout, take your hangers and zip tie the ends of each pair. Just do that on each end and do that, of course, 4 times. If you're enjoying our content and like what you see, please hit subscribe and like. It helps us out a lot, and it'll also give you future videos if you hit the little bell button. So you'll do that 4 times and you'll have 4 little sets for your snowflake. And when you're putting these together, make sure that the hook part is facing the same direction on each one. It's easy enough to make that mistake and you really don't want to do that. And when you're zip tying them, zip tie them really tight and maybe try to overlap the edges, the long edges on each one. It keeps it a little more firm and stable. Once your 4 sets are done, just trim off the excess of the zip ties, and then we will zip tie the ends of those together in the center of the snowflake. And when you're doing the ends of these, zip tying them together, try to make sure that you keep the nice little circle in the middle there. And just put all of them together like that. It's a good idea to keep this video on hand so that when you're putting it together, you can go back and reference it for the layout. Easy to get confused sometimes. The next step is to take the children's hangers, the smaller ones, and zip tie those ends together the same as the larger adult ones we did earlier. And again, make sure that the hooks are facing in the same direction and put them on there tight. So for this project, you will need 8 adult size hangers and 8 children's size hangers. We'll list the items that you'll need for this project below. Then once all your sets are done, we'll place them on top of the larger hangers. Now if you see here, there's sort of a little elbow in the hooks on the bottom and on the top, and you'll want to line those elbows up and then zip tie them there. When you're putting these all together, make sure that you zip tie them really tight. As you can see here, at first we put them on kind of loose so we could adjust things, but that just made a big loosey-goosey mess. So for each subset of our snowflake, you'll probably need about 4 zip ties to connect everything together. Make sure they're tight. This really isn't a hard project, it's really quite easy, but it is somewhat time consuming. We did this video to make this a little easier and a little less complex than a video we had done earlier, a 3D snowflake. And we will leave a link down below to that video if you want to see that. It is a little harder, a little more complex, but the results with this will be just as nice, just as glamorous and spectacular as the last one. And this one is a lot easier. Like I say, you'll have to probably keep watching the video, and that will make this so much easier to do. So this is a DIY video, but more as a reference. So as you make this snowflake, keep referring back to this video and the whole process will be a lot easier because everything's here step by step, easy to follow. At this stage, I tightened up all my zip ties and snipped off the excess. Now, hopefully you tightened all yours ahead of time. We didn't do that originally and found out to be, like I said, just a wobbly little mess. So if you tighten them up the first time, everything should come out just fine. So straighten out all your hangers as you go along, and if you need an extra zip tie, now is the time to put it in. I used about 2 bags of zip ties for this project, and you really don't want to skimp on that. Don't get too little, because as you go along you may have to readjust and use more. But yeah, 2 bags for sure. We got these lights at Lowe's. I would highly recommend them. They have a good count. They're spectacular lights. They have so many functions, different lighting modes and everything. I would just make sure you get some. By the way, we're not getting any kickbacks from Lowe's. We're just saying these are great lights. Now, if you didn't manage to overlap the long ends or whatever, you can use a little bit of hot glue to put them together and attach little hook parts here and there. And we used Gorilla hot glue because it's good for outdoor use. By doing this, it makes the whole structure a whole lot more rigid. And now you can watch me glue this together for the next 30 minutes. Ha! Just kidding. We're going to move on to the lights now. The first step before doing all this is to plug in your lights and make sure they work, because you don't want to be putting on some lights and then find out they're not working. Now, you may not have this set of lights, which is unfortunate. This is a good length for this project. But if you have a different set of lights, just start going around the outside first and then spiral your way inside and go around the whole snowflake. Here I am just finishing up my little lights, zip tying them on, as you'll see here, and make sure those are nice and tight as well. And when you are zip tying your lights to the star, or rather the snowflake, you'll probably want to go about every 2 or 3 inches just to make sure that the lights are stable and firm. Of course, before you start zip tying your lights, you'll want to do a rough layout of it. Like I said, go around the entire outside and then spiral your way toward the middle, just like one of those seashell things. And then you'll know if you have enough lights, because you don't want to have too little if you're starting to zip tie. Then you'll have to cut them all and start all over again. And this is what I meant by spiraling. As you can see here, it spirals, turns around and goes toward the center, just like that. And I'm just rough checking now to make sure that I do have enough to cover all areas so that there's no real dark spots in it. So once all your lights are zip tied in, you'll want to take a larger zip tie and put that at the top of the star opposite the plug-in end and put that together for your hanger. There, and then once all the zip tying is done, be very, very careful, but start trimming off the ends of your zip ties. Once that's done, flip over your project. Now that our lights are in place, we're going to mesh this baby. We got this mesh at Micheal's. It's 21 inches wide, and there's plenty of mesh on here. I think we've used, this is left over from another project, but we've done about 3 projects with 1 roll. So anyways, when you're putting it across, go halfway up the snowflake and make sure there's a good 3 or 4 inches left on each end, just for folding over and keeping ends neat. Once you have that, just cut out that piece. Once you have the mesh that you need, start hot gluing from the center. Put 1 little dab down to start, just to keep it firm, and then work your way out from the center. So you'll go across and you put little dabs in the middle there, and then put your mesh down just to keep it semi-secure. Probably a good idea to use either a silicone spatula or little rubber fingers, because this hot glue is, as it says, hot. I just happen to have tough little fingertips, but don't make that mistake and burn yourself. So use a spatula or rubber fingers. So go all the way across in the center on both sides. Like I said, just using a little dab just to hold it in place. So once we're done the middle of that, we're going to be starting to go down the center of the snowflake. And you'll want to make those a little more permanent, not little dabs, but sort of catching all of the clothes hanger to put the mesh on, to give it some strength. Then once your center is done, and you'll want to do that, the center part anyway, bit by bit, so that your glue doesn't dry up before you get the mesh on it as well. So just do a little segment at a time. Then once you're done that, we move on to the sides, and you'll just have to reach under there and put in a few little dabs just to hold that in place. Then you'll start that on the inside of the snowflake, little dabs just to hold it in place, and work your way to the outside of the snowflake. So once everything's glued in, you'll want to start cutting into each of the little corners. 1, 2, 3, 4 corners. Just cut into there so that you can fold it over later. And once again, please be careful. I know that those lights can be sticking out, so you don't want to cut those. With the inside edges cut, we'll just flip it over. So we'll start gluing on the back side, and on the edges here, you'll want to use plenty of glue because these edges and the center will be high stress points. Once that little center piece is in, fold your lights inside because we do want to contain the lights. tuck it in, fold it over, and hot glue that edge. Once you have those glued, there we go, one side. Now we'll flip it over and do the other side. And we'll do exactly the same thing. We'll measure out the gauze, or the mesh rather. Like I say, have a little bit of overlap so you can fold it over, cut out what you need, and repeat the whole process. Then once you flip it over, trim the center because you don't want an extra center seam in your snowflake. So just trim that off. Then once you're finished that meshing, just trim off any excess. Here I am trimming off some of the excess. Oh no! What did I do? Oh no, I think I cut the line. Shoot. What am I gonna do? I know. It's time for a puppy break. So while I figure that out, I'm gonna continue meshing. So start at the center again, work your way out. And I don't really know what I did there, but anyway, just keep working on the meshing. And make sure the corners have a lot of glue and the lights are turned inside, because you do want to contain the lights, and like I said, the corners are stress points. The center of the snowflake is also a stress point, so you want to make sure you put glue all the way around the perimeter of that circle. Then once again, make sure you put a lot of glue on the center because that's joining both sides and you want that pretty strong, and it's also a stress point and you don't want it falling apart there. So now we're going to be repeating what we did in the first half, so I'm going to do this a little quicker and talk a little faster because you've seen this already. And like I said, please refer back to the video if there's any questions in your mind or you have to see something again. Just refer back to the video. Hey, the lights are back! Oh, that's just great. I didn't cut them. Whew, that was close. And it is very important to be very careful when you're cutting because you do not want to cut your lights. We've had some comments from viewers who have cut their lights, and that's just a whole waste of project there because you have to start maybe not completely over, but pretty close. So just be careful, cut with caution. So once again, cut deep into the corners and then flip it over. Then once again, you just glue all the edges, get those down, glue, put in the lights, tuck, fold, glue again, and just repeat that. I'm not going to bore you with this for the next 30 minutes, so this is going to go pretty fast. And like I say, if you need to reference anything, please just check back on the video. Once you're finished all the mesh, you'll notice that there's some holes in the back. Now just take some of that scrap mesh that you have cut off. That's what we've done. And just glue that over the holes. Just glue it to the plastic hangers to fill in the holes. After all the meshing is done, there was probably about 4 holes that we patched up. And we do want to patch these because we do want to contain the lights inside the snowflake. So just go ahead and patch any holes that you might have. So now it's time to decorate the snowflake. Here we have an assortment of snowflakes that we got at Dollar Tree last Christmas. Just a nice little assortment there, and just dig into your little collection of stuff and see what you have. Put some stuff together as we're doing here. So we put a little rhinestone in the middle of this. We did cut some apart and then put them back together with other pieces just to give it some three-dimensional effect. It also gives some color contrast so it shows up nice on the snowflake. And we're making this one to put in the very center of the snowflake. Now we're going to place this decoration in the middle of the snowflake, and don't be shy about using glue here because you may be using it outdoors. And once again, we did use Gorilla Glue, which is good outdoors. So put lots on there and press firmly to make sure she sticks. And there it is, looking pretty good, but I think it needs more. So we're going to embellish these rhinestones with some of these snowflakes, and I think we're going to put them on the corners of each point. So we'll take our rhinestone and we'll put one in the center of each one of the snowflakes. And you want to put your glue on the big item and put the little item on top. Or so I've been told. And this was one pack of snowflakes that we got at Dollar Tree, and we used them all. Once I've prepared all the snowflakes with the rhinestones, I started to put them all on each corner of the snowflake. and I had 3 extras, so I placed them in a little triangle around the center of the snowflake. And when you are putting on your snowflakes, be generous with your glue. These may be outside and windy conditions may happen, so you want to make sure that they stay on there for you. What an elegant finish that would work well in any home. Thanks for crafting with me today and for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you give it a try. Well, we'll see you again next time.